Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina. This is Lifting Pins and Needles, a channel all about sewing. Welcome and thank you for being with me for a little while today. I would love you to subscribe. Please subscribe, tap on that bell so you don't miss when I upload a video. And yeah, share the love, give me a comment, give me an emoji. It really helps the channel grow and I would appreciate it a lot. So let's get into it. Thank you for all your lovely feedback on my last couple of videos, especially the last one. I appreciate it a lot. Today I bring you another creative project. I've been talking about this for a while, that I wanted to use the Tessa Sheath dress from Lengthened as a base to create different styles. The Tessa could be a blank slate for anything you want to make, really. As the name states, this is a sheath dress, but designed to be made with knit fabric, medium weights with at least 20% stretch, Ponte, Scuba, Liverpool, that type of knit. And as always, there are lots of options for you to choose what you really like. So for the neckline, there's a bateau neck, which is a higher neckline, and a scoop. That tends to be my preferred. There are sleeve options, sleeveless, and then 5 different length options. And for the length of the dress, you can choose above the knee or sort of at the shin midi length. There is a seam at the center back for waist shaping, and it's really good that it's there in the drafting because it helps with shaping. The sizing for this pattern comes from extra small to triple extra large, with body measurements at the bust of 33 to 49.5 inches and hips 33.5 to 51.5 inches. Now, the way this is drafted is that at the bust, there is no ease. So there's no negative ease or positive ease. It is actually the measurement of the bust, right? And then at the waist and hips, there is 2-inch positive ease. They recommend that you choose your size based on your high bust. And I'm going to show you a size chart here. I chose a size large. My high bust is 38 there, but then my full bust is 41, not 40. So slightly above the chart, as are my hips. But I'm significantly smaller than the extra large, so they always recommend if you're in between sizes, choose the smallest size. And then you need to consider this is made in knit fabric that is going to stretch, and I'm comfortable with a bit of negative ease even with medium weight knits, so I chose my size large confidently that I was going to have a good result. Now, the instructions are packed full of tips to customize the dress to your body. This is drafted for 5'5" height and I'm 5'8". So obviously there are going to be height discrepancies, length discrepancies. So on the pattern, you'll find a bust line marked on the pattern, a waistline and a hip line. And those are reference points that are super important that they be there in order for you to assess and adjust accordingly. So I think that is really good. And you're going to see me fiddling with that later on. The cool thing about this pattern is that the line of the waistline can be separated into a bodice. So this can be a knit bodice. And it's designed to be matched up with the Sybil Illusion skirt collection. I've already done a video about that. I will pop it up there in the cards and put a picture here. I have made the pencil skirt, the gold skirt, but there are 7 skirts there. So I wanted to play with one of those skirt styles and match it with the bodice of the Tessa. That's the fun I wanted to have. In Up Close and So Personal, you're going to see how I customized the pattern to fit me. I did make a wearable toile that has some fitting issues that I can still wear it, but I did want to correct a few height things. And for me, making those corrections on a knit garment is a bit harder than woven because these knit fabrics also stretch vertically and horizontally. So I did want to make one, and I'll show you that in another opportunity what my wearable muslin looks like. But there I determined where exactly I needed to add length in the bodice. So you're going to see that. You're going to see how I'm going to mash up the bodice to a skirt and what my initial idea was and what it turned out to be. That was quite different, but I'm super happy with the results. So let's hop into Up Close and So Personal.
Don't you think this is starting to wear on me? You've been raining down like hail. I'm weak. I have tried to give you my soul, but you can't love something you own. It's too late to repair.
These are both pattern pieces for the dress. This is the front, this is the back, and I have made some modifications for the dress to fit me better on the upper body. I have quite a significant height difference to the drafted height of this pattern, and so I did have to make a few changes. Okay, here is the front. Now this pattern has a dotted line across the front that says bust line. There is also another dotted line that says waistline, so it gives you good references that you can compare to your lengths, to your bodies. There's even a dot there that marks the apex of the pattern, so I've colored that in red there if you can see it, and that is at the same height of the bust line. But my apex is lower than that if I measure from the top, discounting seam allowance. And I've confirmed this with the muslin, wearable muslin I made. My apex is lower, an inch lower than that. So I cut at the bust line and added the length I needed there. But I have just added the length that I needed there because, as you can see, the fullness drafted for the bust on the pattern is on this area, as you can see with the curve. So I needed the added length in that area. And that's why I've just cut at the bust line, added an inch, and that fixes my apex point. My bust fullness is lower, so, you know. This also corrects my waistline. So the dotted line there had a waistline an inch shorter than my waistline. I'm 5'8" and this is drafted for 5'5". There is a height difference between my body and the drafted one. So when I lengthened an inch there, it automatically fixed my waistline there. So I don't need to add any length to the waist. You can see the narrowest part of the pattern, that is going to match my height now. So I don't need to worry about that. I have copied my pattern onto a piece of cardboard so that now I can use this as the bodice of the Tessa. So I don't need to be fiddling with with this one that I've already made the adjustments to. This includes 3/8 seam allowance everywhere. This is a size large. The front is cut on the fold. This has got the scoop neckline option, and now I can play with this. This is the back, and now the back also has the reference point of the bust line. It also has the dotted line on the pattern. There is no bust on the back, but I do need to match the amount I lengthen to the bodice at the same area anatomically. So I also slashed at the bust line, added an inch, as you can see there, and now my front and back pattern pieces are going to match. The waistline initially there is the same that I'm going to use. That includes the 3/8 seam allowance. Okay, the waistline that you see here on the dotted line is where I'm going to cut to make the bodice, and that is going to include 3/8 of a seam allowance right there that is included in all the patterns. So this is actually the stitching line right there. But I need to make a small sway back adjustment. From the center there of the back, I have marked a point there 5/8 of an inch above the waistline, as you can see, and then slanted it off to nothing on the side seam. So this is going to remove a wedge here that I don't need because of my shape, my anatomic shape. So some people don't need to do this adjustment, but with making the muslin, I did find out I had excess fabric here on the center back of my middle. So that is a small adjustment I've made. So then I transferred my pattern to cardboard so I can use this as my back bodice now. This has the sway back adjustment included there, so I don't need to fiddle with that anymore. And it's got the 3/8 seam allowance included everywhere. This does have a center back seam because there is some waist shaping with the back seams. I think that the seam being there is good to get a better fit. Now I have these two that are like sort of knit blocks for me. Now that I've figured out the size, the fit, the height of the waist, the height of my bust, everything, I know I can use this over and over again and modify sleeves, necklines, skirts. You know, so that's why I've transferred these to cardboards for longevity, because I can just trace them and use them over and over and over. I'm going to match the bodice with the drop yoke with swing option of the Sybil Illusion skirts. This is the pattern piece from the Sybil Illusion skirt collection, the drop yoke skirt. So this area is going to attach to the bodice, and then below this is going to come what I want to design the features to. Now I had to add 1.5 inches. My height, as I've said, is 5'8". This is drafted for 5'5", so there's a 3-inch difference in height. And so they say that for every inch in height, either you're taller or shorter, you should adjust 1/2 inch. So I've adjusted 1.5 inches there because that's half of 3, right? So there is a lengthen and shorten line there. I cut through that and added my amount. And now I can keep working and it's going to fit me like it's intended to fit. Otherwise, I would have a mini skirt. As you saw on the bodice, I adjusted on the back seam 5/8 of an inch and did my adjustment there. Now the front, I'm going to cut normal, like you see right there. It says front cut line normal. But for the back, I have dropped from the top there down 5/8 of an inch, the same I adjusted for the bodice. And from there, I have drawn a line tapering to 0 there at the side seam. So when I cut my front, I'm actually going to cut them both the same and then adjust the back and just trim it down following that line so that the fit is better for me on my back. Now I wish I could have used this. This is the bottom bit of this type of skirt, but my fabric did not allow me to cut it like this. But the extra piece I'm using at the bottom of this part there is going to be the same length here so that it'll hit me above the knee.
What can I do? Time flashed by and I woke up on the other side of the moon.
This is the line art of the Tessa dress, the front view. I've chosen the scoop neck option, but there's other options. I am going to ignore the sleeves, so they're not there. I'm not using those. You can see the shape of the dress is in at the waist. It's quite a nice shaped dress. And I want to make some changes. So I'm going to show you another line art with the little lines I'm going to make. Here you can see what I want to do. You've already seen me separate the dress into a bodice, and that's why you see a seam line there at the waist. And then I'm going to use the Sybil Illusion skirts. I've printed out here all the views. Now all these skirts are designed to fit the Tessa bodice. So I'm going to use this one, the drop yoke with swing, and this area there that attaches to the waist and then goes down over your hips. That is what I want to attach onto there. And that's why you can see another seam line there. But instead of all this swing there, I wanted to do that, but I didn't have enough fabric. I am going to use the bottom bit of the flounce. Instead, I'm going to just add a little crossover with buttons. Now, if you see, this is like to symbolize what I want to do because it's easier to explain. It'll just be a long rectangle, right? The same length that I want. And it's not going to have any seams. I've marked reference points there for side seams that will attach onto the side. The back will be just one piece, but on the front, there's going to be a little crossover there. And on that little crossover, there are going to be buttons going down the side. So the size of this rectangle, I'm just going to cut the whole width of the fabric actually. And I'm going to pin it onto my completed dress after I've sewn all this section. And that's how I'm going to determine how much and where I'm going to cross over. When I'm happy with where it is on me, I'm going to leave an inch there to fold back on both sides. I'm going to interface that inch to reinforce the area because that's where I'm going to do buttonholes and buttons. Now the back of the dress will be different than the original Tessa. There will be a center back seam on the bodice area, as you can see there. Then there's going to be the waist seam because I'm separating into a bodice. And then this area here of the hips and the skirt at the back will not have a center back seam like the Tessa does, only up to the bodice area. I have a partially constructed dress. You can see the bodice is there, it's all complete. I have lined it with the clean sleeveless bodice method that I've shown before. I've done that. Here you can see the waist seam where the polka dots don't match. I wasn't really in the right headspace to match those polka dots, so I can live with that. Okay, below the waist seam, you can see this new area of the skirt. This is coming from the Sybil Illusion skirt, and you can see lining peeping out below that because I wanted to line lower than the bodice. So not just the bodice, I wanted to line also partially the skirt. Underneath here will come the feature that I've been talking to you about. I have the whole width of the fabric cut out into a rectangle, and this is the length that is going to be attached to the bottom of that part of the dress I've already shown. So on one of these extremes of the rectangle, I have gone ahead and fused some interfacing there, 1 inch wide, and that is what I'm going to fold. Now I know that this is what I want there, but I don't know at the end how much excess fabric I'm going to have. So I'm going to pin this onto the bottom and figure out where I want it to be. So I want that there, and then this is going to come over there, and this is going to go behind this. So I already know there's a bunch of excess there, here. To make it really accurate, I'm just going to start pinning around, and when I get to this part, I'm going to know exactly how much excess I'm going to have. And that's when I'm going to trim this out and do the same thing that I did on this other side. Just fuse a strip of interfacing. I already cut it out, and then I can go ahead and attach, you know, do the seam. So I've got the bottom of the skirt partially pinned here. There you can see where I'd already folded that bit there. So that's where I started pinning on the area that I wanted it to overlap, sort of on the side. And so I've pinned. I've passed both side seams there of the skirt. This part doesn't have a side seam, it's just one piece. And now I'm almost here at the overlap. So I'm gonna keep pinning. Okay, so I've reached this part there. This is where this is folded back as like a facing. And I want this one to reach there. So there's like 1 inch overlap between them. Put a pin there as a reference, as you can see. And now from there, I want to fold this back 1 inch. So I've got 2 pins there. One that marks my initial reference, and the extra bit that I want to leave as like a facing. So this is where I'm going to cut the excess. I hope this now starts to make sense. I have pinned everything, I haven't sewn it, so you can see that area is attached to that part of the skirt. And this is the famous overlap I wanted. So this one comes underneath. It has 1 inch folded back that has been interfaced, and that's like a grown on facing as such. And then this is the one that comes over the top. It also overlaps this one by 1 inch and has the same fold over on the back and there. Now I was planning to do buttonholes and buttons, but actually I can just sew the buttons on. I'm not gonna be like undoing these. All this I'm doing is for a visual thing. So I can just go and put my huge wooden buttons there and just sew them on through all the layers. And I think that would be just as effective, because actually I'm not going to be undoing these. You know, I feel safer if they were just always secure. Here I want to do mitered corners to make it really neat. This is the easiest way to do a mitered corner, no matter what hem you're using. I'm using a 1 inch hem, and it's the same amount I'm folding over here. So you just double that. If you're doing a 1 inch hem, you measure from the corner there 2 inches. 2 inches, and then from the corner up another 2 inches. So let's say you're doing a hem that's 5/8 of an inch. You double that and you mark from there up and there, and it can go to the tiny mitered corners. Let's say your hem is 3/8 of an inch. You just measure from there up 3/8 of an inch doubled, which is 2 centimeters or less than 1 inch, and you do your dot there and then your dot there. In this case, mine is 1 inch, so I've measured 2 and 2. You can see the dot there in red, and then I've marked it in white there so it can stand out. And then you just do a diagonal line across these 2 dots there. Now you can't see it there, so I'm going to complete this sort of red there. Okay, once the line is drawn, you just get this like that, fold that right sides together, and then you're going to get this tip there, and you're going to have one point on one side and the other point on the other, and you're just going to match them up with pins there, and then you're just going to keep pinning with that line there that you made as a reference. You can see the line there. So I'm just going to pin that there, and then you have a little triangle. So you just sew that triangle, and even before you sew the triangle, to avoid bulk, you can just trim this off and leave like 1/4 of an inch there. After sewing that and then turning it right sides out, It's going to be a perfectly mitered corner. Well, it's not really nice because it's just got pins, but once it's sewn, it's going to be really nice. Okay, I hope that was fun to watch and not so long. There are lots of things I tried to cover in there, you know, in a sort of fast pace so you don't get bored. My initial idea for this dress, and I even talked about it in my plans for June, was to make this dress. I'm inserting a picture here I found on Pinterest. It's a fitted dress with a flounce at the bottom in the polka dots, and I even had the polka dot fabric. What I didn't remember was though how much fabric I actually bought. I bought this in Chile and I only bought a meter. I mean, what can you do with a meter? I tried all the pattern Tetris you can imagine to get the swing pattern piece of the drop yoke skirt on there, but there was no way. So I had to change my design and use that same length to add what you saw, and I'm still really happy with the result. So here is my polka dot dress. Now, I mentioned there that the non-dot matching there at the waistline didn't bother me, but it actually bothers me a lot. And these dots are so small. I really, when I was cutting this, I wasn't in the right headspace to try and like get it all perfectly matched up. Yeah. The other thing, it's near impossible to match up because the skirt has shaping. I'm not cutting rectangles here, and well, I can always cover this up with a belt, and that is how you're going to see it later on. So there's the waistline there. I showed you I'd lined everything. So everything is clean lined. I've done this many times and I have 2 tutorials showing how I do that. So I'm not going to like be repeating content, you know. At the back, you can see there's the center back seam that has the shaping for the waist, and then my back seam where I had to do the sway back adjustment for my shape, you know. And here at the bottom comes the feature that I was trying to highlight how to do. I just sewed the buttons on. These are fixed on. I didn't end up doing the buttonholes because what's the point? This is just an aesthetic thing. It's just for show. They have no functionality, so I might as well just sew the buttons on. I'm a practical seamstress, you know. I will go to great length to do things, but when I see that they're not practical, I won't do them. So buttonholes weren't practical, so I didn't do them. I'm going to turn this inside out so you can see. Okay, so there's the blue lining. I just used tricot lining. I didn't have enough to, you know, line the whole thing, but the main area of the dress, basically the bodice and then the hip area, is lined. So this covers that seam right there. Here you can see the overlap inside, the little cute mitered corners that I showed you how to do. Mitered corners are super fun to do and just make a garment so much more polished. I would definitely do them on all these little square areas there. And yeah, there's no seam around this bottom piece. You know, I just pinned it around. You know, you don't need to draft pattern pieces for everything that you sew. I do draft things when they need to be drafted, but if I know that I can just reference around the circumference I had, I can just do the rectangle, pin it, trim the excess and get the same result, other than cracking my head and trying to measure and do all that sort of thing, you know. There are certain aspects of sewing that can be totally freestyle. Totally freestyle. Here you can see my mismatched dots that I've tried to hide with the belt. I think that works. And here you can see the dress far away. You see I've got the waist height correctly at my height and all my anatomic parts right on the dress. I really like it. And now up close you can see the scoop necklines, not so high, not so low, just right, lined inside. Good coverage at the arm side. And that is how I've adjusted the sway back. You see I've got no excess fabric at the back there. Here you can see the button feature. It's just for show. It's just to make it look nice. And I love the brown with the navy together. Now that I've customized the bodice to fit me and that I've got them in cardboard, they can act like a knit block for me, and it's going to be super fun to make adjustments now. And you know, I've got color blocking ideas, I've got a lot of ideas. So one of these days I'm going to pop up a video together with at least 3 of them in the same video, so you can see all the things that I plan to do with this dress. I think a pattern like this, a knit block that fits you well, can be a staple, and there's so many things you can do. So I am totally happy I took the time to make the toile, to make the little adjustments I needed. They weren't hard, they weren't many. The best thing about sewing is making the things in the fabric you like and to have the fit that you really want to have, or else we'd just be buying ready to wear, right? That is what I wanted to share with you. The affiliate link for this pattern is down below in the description box as always, and if you purchase through there at no cost to you, I receive a small commission from there. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you soon with my June makes. There are some you haven't seen, believe me. I know I've put up a lot of videos with a lot of makes, but I have made some things that have not made it into a vlog, and I'm going to show you those. See you soon. Bye.